How do you feel about high school reunions? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years after? Do you like seeing people and hanging out with them, or would you never go to one of those? The Comeuppance is a new play at Almeida Theatre which follows 5 people who reunite at one of those occasions. And as you could imagine, their lives have taken quite a different turn, and they kind of reminisce quite a lot about what happened and try to pick it up where they left it off. But things don't go according to the plan, and some old wounds get opened. That's pretty much the storyline of this new play at Almeida Theatre in North London. So, do you want to know what I think about it? Let's dive in. This play is written by an American playwright, Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, and therefore it is set in America. So, from this perspective, I do think that this show might resonate more with American audiences, but this is not to say that there aren't some really big common themes that are discussed. There are certain references that I think are more familiar to people who went to school in America, because I think if there was a version of this that was adapted to the British culture, then it would look quite different from some perspective. Due to the influence of American movies and TV shows, I'm sure that everyone will find a way to navigate this story and relate to it, despite it not being set anywhere where you maybe attended school. This play is set directly after the pandemic, so everyone has that element of their life to also reflect on and talk about kind of how it's gone for them. And Brandon is actually saying in the program how basically this was also his way of processing everything that has happened. There is that element to the story which makes it a bit of a reality check from the perspective of what has happened and how it has impacted us, but also it is a reality check if you're sitting in the audience and you yourself are 10, 15, 20, 30 years after your high school graduation and thinking about your life. How far did I go compared to what I thought I would? And these characters that kind of got back together have their own unique stories. One character left and lived somewhere abroad, and he has this storyline of someone who at the surface is very high achieving and has a lot of things going for them. Someone else had some health issues. One of them actually went to war, and this has made a profound impact on him. Then there are people who are in marriages, and are they happy in those marriages and happy in their careers? So all these questions are asked, and while these people are discussing that on stage, I think it is really hard not to think about how do you feel right now in all these elements that are brought to the surface in their conversation. So from that perspective, it might come across as slightly straight to the point type of play where it just puts you in a position to rethink your whole life. But the good thing is that there is quite a lot of humor. There's some sort of lightheartedness to it in terms of the jokes and just generally how they reconnect and how it feels that basically they're still the same people who they were when they were in high school, and they have similar jokes and think about it and recall them and do them, and there's some really funny elements like that. However, while this is all fun and games, there is this looming presence of death, and this death is visiting each and every one of them in a sense that when there are these monologues that death shares, death inhabits one of these characters and all focuses on that character. All those lighthearted moments in the play are dimmed down because you're just thinking, well, what's gonna happen? Who of them is going to get killed or die, or something bad is coming? And from that perspective, I do think that this story is a bit pessimistic and it doesn't necessarily have a happy solution, which again depends on what type of plays you like and enjoy. This is one that makes you reflect and think, but doesn't really give you a lot of hope. It's more like, this is the life and death is coming for some sooner rather than later. So I think that there is that premise. But what's really good about it is the way that it's stripped down to this very simple set of a porch, kind of like in front of a house of one of the characters, and that's where majority of things happen. There is some kind of blocking and running around and things like that happening, but majority of it is just them sitting. So it like really feels like you're intruding on someone's private conversations and seeing them kind of just hang out for the first time in 20 years. So all of this would be impossible without a really good cast, and I do think the cast is pretty strong. It is some top-notch acting, and just generally I think because this play doesn't really offer offer you a lot of space to move around and do something. It is very much on how they embody the character in the moment and portray it right there, rather than kind of relying on something else that will make the story work for them. It is just on the actor to really showcase all that subtext around them really struggling with their own lives and struggling to talk how they are ultimately unhappy and not everything has gone in their life according to the plan. There's a very strong element of nostalgia in the show and generally just reminiscing, and this is true for the characters on stage, but it's also true for everyone in the audience. It is something that I felt like energy was bouncing off from cast to the audience, back and forth, and you can hear these laughters. You can hear one laughter at some point because there's just one thing that resonates with one person, and I think it was very individual the way that all of us perceived this show. If you think that a high school reunion is something that you want to see on stage, then go and see The Comeuppance. It is on in Almeida Theatre until mid-May, and Almeida Theatre is pretty small and intimate place to go and see a show, so I do think that you would enjoy it and it would really bring this story to life, especially in this environment. But if you're not really resonating with a high school reunion, I don't blame you. Check out this video because you're gonna find there are some of the Olivier awarded shows which are still on in 2024.